Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brothers on the Board, the podcast where we help teachers find peace and fulfillment in their careers. My name's John, and as always, I am joined here today by Wes, the Hangnail Howard. And today, today on episode 5, what's wrong?
What is the hangnail?
That's you. What are you talking about?
What?
Anyways, today on episode 5, we were talking all about consequences. So, the idea of consequences and what they mean and how we can get students to kind of take ownership of what they do in the classroom or the hallway or wherever else it is that they mess up. So, Hangnail, how you doing today, man?
I want to go on record stating that I do not want to be known as the hangnail. I'm doing pretty good. You came in hot with that one. I wasn't expecting it.
Wait till next week's nickname. Anyways, I got a whole list of them.
Oh my goodness.
Anyways, I was like, I'll start with the hangnail. Anyways, I'm curious. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What do you think is the purpose of consequences for students in schools? Like, what's the reason? What are we trying to do with them?
I mean, the whole point of the consequence is to teach the behavior, or like to deter the behavior, right? Or teach what the correct behavior is. So that's the whole point of consequences for me.
I agree. I mean, ultimately, the goal, right, is to get students to take ownership in whatever it is that they did and to teach them how to do things the right way, right? I mean, that's the goal, okay? And you see a lot of consequences being issued, and these consequences are centered around, things like detention or taking recess or lunch detention, suspension, those kinds of things. And I'm going to go on record now, and I'm going to say, in no way am I saying that those things are bad things, right? I do believe that they have their time and their place, right? And in terms of this episode, it's not specifically looking at consequences from the perspective of, oh, they did something really bad, right? We're not talking about like, oh, they jumped somebody or they assaulted somebody, or we're not talking about something really really bad here. We're talking about students who continuously just don't follow the expectations, right? The kid that you went through the expectations, you said, hey, nobody is supposed to stand up for the next 20 minutes because I need people in a seat, and they just keep getting up over and over and over. The kid that, hey, it's a quiz, you can't be talking, you gotta be quiet, and they just keep talking over and nothing crazy. They're not screaming, they're not throwing chairs, right? They're just always talking, mumbling, right? They're always doing something, and you're trying to teach them kind of etiquette. You're trying to teach them how to behave in certain ways, outside of just taking recess or giving detentions or whatever. Now, I'm not saying it can't escalate to those things, and it can, but like, what are some steps that we can take to hopefully go in between those steps, right? So, in terms of consequences, I've got a list here of 5 different things that we're going to discuss and kind of see if there's a whole lot of merit to them. See kind of how well they go, or maybe if we've seen these in classrooms before. So the very first one, and I'm going to see, Wes, kind of what you think about this, and maybe you can give me your take from a science perspective. I'm not sure how this would work with you, but as an English teacher, I like to incorporate writing with my consequences. So what I'll have them do is we do a form of writing called two-seek. It's a method for writing paragraphs or incorporating them into essays or whatever. And I like to have students write an essay over whatever it is, or a paragraph, not even an essay, over whatever it is that they did. One of the ones that I see a lot is tardies. Why is it important to be punctual, right? So I'll have them write a paragraph about whatever it is that they did, okay, so that they can think about it, so that they can reflect on it and just understand why, and try to make it academically relevant, not a waste of time. Something that I say, okay, well, this kid needs practice with this anyway. Okay. So what are you, what's your thoughts? Is that something that could be applied in your subject area? What do you think?
I mean, I definitely think that that's an awesome idea. Um, I like that a lot. That you would have them write out their consequences. But as far as like applying it to the curriculum, the science curriculum, that's going to be pretty tough to do. I
Okay.
don't know. I could have them set up an experiment where they're
There
like
you go.
they're late. Like they're late to class 5 times and they're on time 5 times, and then like test their progress. I don't know. Like that would be kind of crazy, but I don't know if like applying it to my curriculum would be a viable thing to do. But I mean, having them write out why, communicate it, and I think like a lot of the consequences that we're probably going to talk about today, like it's very important that you like give them time to reflect and have reflection, not just hey, I'm taking something away from you and like it is what it is, right? Like don't do it again. Um,
Sure.
so I think that piece is definitely important. But as far as like connecting it to my science curriculum, don't think that's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think so. But the thing about writing, and I think that any teacher, because we require pretty much all of our subject areas does to seek, right. I think writing is applicable across the board. It's cross curriculum. It's something that everyone can do. But I see what you're saying, right? Tying it specifically to your standards would be tough. But you did kind of give me an idea, right? Like maybe have students do a research project where you look at like successful people and what they say about being punctual, right? The people that um, you know the Elon Musks of the world, right? These hyper successful people. What is the importance of Mark Cuban, those kinds of people. Like, why is it important to be on time and be punctual?
Yeah, they have
Um,
the YouTube series where like they like the daily life of like one of those people like Mark Cuban's on it, I know, and where they like I wake up at like 4:30 in the morning and I do this till this time and this till this time, and so that would definitely
Dude,
let them see.
Mark Cuban's wild, right? Like I watch his stuff, like, and it's like he's like, I do everything by email. Yeah, I don't need meetings. I do everything by email.
He has like
I'm
three
like,
phones and like, he's always doing different
yeah,
stuff on them.
yeah, it's crazy. Like, but I think that those types of Warren Buffett, those types of people who have been just hyper successful in their lives, I think that it's you can take something from them. Now, I'm not saying, hey man, you watch a few YouTube videos, you're gonna be a billionaire, but I think it is useful to take something away from what kind of successful people do to emulate those people to a degree. Um, speaking of YouTube, and I wanted to mention this, I was watching a Mr. Beast video the other day where he gave contestants $500,000. I'm totally getting off topic, but it's worth it. He gave contestants $500,000. They had to protect it in any way they wanted to. So they're spending tens of thousands of dollars making a fortress around this money, and then they blasted it with tanks and dropped flaming cars on it, and they got to keep the money if the money survived. And I'm like, this dude is his level of ambition is incredible. And here I am making a teacher podcast. I was like, bro, you know what? Mr. Beast needs to take lessons from me. He doesn't understand. This is what ambition looks like.
This is it.
Right? This
Yeah.
is this is it. This is winning. Anyways, I totally just came to mind. I was like, man, it was such a cool video. But anyways, incorporating writing, incorporating curriculum, finding ways to think outside the box, just to get them to understand maybe what it is that they did, and also try to tie it back to academic standards if possible. I'm not saying it's always feasible, but it is something to consider. All right, number two, number two on our list. Now I'm going to get your opinion on this one. offering a choice.
I
Do we offer choices with consequences? Mm.
ooh, offering a choice with consequences. So you're saying a
I'm going to give
student,
you this or this. You choose.
you
They
either
did something
write a
stupid,
paper or
or you have lunch detention.
you have lunch detention. So you're choosing now to give up your time, your free time, um, or you can, yeah. I mean, if anyone has listened to this podcast yet, you know that I'm like a huge advocate for student choice and a huge advocate for empowering students. And I definitely think that that's something that you could do. I do not do that. I will say that. I do not offer student choice on those consequences. And I could see the argument for not doing that,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
These are the
Yeah, I can see.
expectations. You don't follow the expectations, you don't get a choice. Um,
Mhm.
so I could see the argument both ways, but any chance I can get to empower students, I'm going to take it. So I think that really allows them to reflect on, what they've done and gives them more of a say in it. So
Okay. I'm gonna tell you a story. This happened the other day. Actually, I gave a student a choice on a consequence just the other day. So I'm gonna tell you kind of what happened, and I'll let you kind of see what you think about this situation, right? So students know this is very clear in our classroom. You do not get in my desk. You don't go through my drawers. This is my space. You don't bother my stuff, right? And I think that's most teachers, right? Most teachers are I think, pretty particular about that.
I'm
You
going
look
to
like you have
pause you right
something else.
there. We are very different on that one.
Okay,
I
so you're
and
cool with it?
I have actually had issues where I've had like a substitute teacher, and so I have all of my pencils and stuff that the students use is in one of my desk drawers. I don't keep anything in my desk really, other than like classroom utensils, right? Like I don't
Now
keep.
is this you, pretty much you, or is this kind of as a school?
This is just me.
Oh, it's just you. Okay,
It's not
all
like a
right.
school policy or anything like. So this is just me, right? I don't really keep anything in my desk drawers that I care about, and so all the time when I'm working with groups of students and stuff, I'll just be like, "Oh, grab a pencil out of my desk. Grab, like, just go. Don't worry about it. Just grab it."
But you're telling them to, but you're cool if they just went and did it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
Okay,
I
okay.
am. I tell them at the beginning of the year, like, I don't want to have to, like, I don't want to be stopped. If you need a pencil, like, just go grab a pencil, write your name on the board. They have I have a spot where they write their name and borrow a pencil from me.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so I'll just tell them, like, just go because I don't have anything in there I care about. And so, like, I know some teachers are like, that's my personal, like, area and they keep stuff there. I
Mhm.
just don't. So,
I know a lot of teachers keep, they don't want their cell phone being a distraction all day. They keep their cell phone in their desk. They keep other personal things in their desk. They don't want students going through it. Um, uh, you know, I can totally understand that. And I don't have a ton of things in my desk, but what I do have is thumbtacks. Now, I want you to think about that. You know where this is going, right? So we come back from lunch, and I'm not quite up there to the room yet, but another teacher is. An intervention specialist. She's up there. She's standing outside the door and she sees this kid going through my drawers. Okay. She tells him, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't be in those drawers." Blah blah blah. So he stops while he goes away and he goes and sits down. Well, I get up there and she tells me about it. So I can't just ignore it. Right? That's okay. I gotta talk to him. Pull him out in the hallway. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing going through my drawers? What are you doing?" And he says, me and another student, we were going through and getting thumbtacks. And I say, well, okay, do you have any more? And he says, yeah. And he pulls a few out of his pocket and he hands them to me. And I say, okay, is that it? And he goes, no, I got a few in my bag. So he goes into the room and he gets them out of his bag and he brings them to me. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, like you was going through my drawers and you can't do that. I can't ignore it. You know not to. But on the other hand, I'm like, you owned up to it. You admitted it. You told me what you were doing. You didn't fight me about it. You didn't lie about it. You didn't, go on and try to argue with me. You owned up to it. So for me, giving him a choice, we had a PBIS thing that day where they could do, it was like this little like student shop type thing. So I gave him a choice. I said, okay, you can either sit that out, skip that today, or I'll give you a lunch detention on Monday. And he went, oh man, I'll do the lunch detention. I said, okay, you got it. So, wrote him the lunch detention. Me and him, we're cool. Right? No problems. So what's your thoughts on that? Is that a middle ground? Is that saying, okay, I appreciate the fact that you were honest with me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of still rewarding the positive behavior, right? Of him owning up to it, because that's good. But
Yeah, I mean, you got a choice at least, right?
oh yeah, like, but he still has to have a consequence, right? He still didn't follow the expectation, so you can't like
Yeah.
just let him off the hook. You can't just be like, "Hey, thanks for that, for being honest. Let's move on." So yeah, I agree. I think that's perfectly fine.
I think in some circumstances, when you give them a choice, because let's face it, and I'm not saying that this is always necessarily a thing, and I agree that if you if a kid does something really bad and like you're okay, I'm giving them this consequence, and I agree that most of the time, yeah, like you don't have a choice. This is what it is, right?
Hmm.
But I do think that occasionally when you have little things, and it's a way of giving a consequence while continuing like to build or salvage your relationship. Does that make sense? Because I feel like when you issue a consequence, in some cases, there's a period after that consequence where you have to rebuild that relationship. You have to build them back up.
Hmm.
I think that kind of helps with that downtime a little bit. I think that when you give them a choice, they see, oh well, I've got a consequence, but you know they saw the positive side of it to a degree, right? Like they understood to a degree, if it's a situation like that. So I thought that was an interesting one. I wanted to bring that up because I spent some time, after I talked to him and he owned up to it. And I kind of said, all right, we'll go sit down. Let me think about this. I thought about it for a little while, and that's what I came up with. So I know that many people may disagree with it, or to each their own, but that was the best way that I could kind of figure out of dealing with it, whatever. So offering a choice, I think that's an option, something that you can look into. Another thing is my bad goes a long way. My bad goes a long way. I think we've got away from just having, and we have this discussion on with our teachers a lot. We've got away from just having students apologize. Now, it's like immediately here's your consequence, right? But if a kid is given the option to think about it and apologize, right, and really reflect on it, is that an option?
Yeah, I mean, like giving them the option to right the wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I definitely think that that should be an option instead of just giving the consequence and moving on. I mean, anytime you obviously, I mean, I think we all kind of know, anytime you can have a discussion with the student about the behavior and why it happened and how to correct it in the future, because we've said this before. I don't think students are just coming in your class for the most part and like wanting to be disruptive and disrespectful for the most part. I think, they sometimes environment and behavior play a role in it. But I think they want to do what's right. They want to follow your
Mm-hmm.
expectations. So as long as you have that conversation, you're very clear about that conversation, very clear about why they are getting that consequence, and if they are able to talk it through and apologize, and the behavior changes, I don't see why not. Again, that some people may say, well, that's just being a pushover. I think that'll be a controversial one.
There's a difference though between, okay, and again, we're talking about minor things here, right? We're not talking about major problems. Okay. Um, we talk about this with our students a lot at our school. The idea that if you do something and you own it, hey, you've been up like 6 times today. Like you keep getting up over and over and over. I'm trying to talk. Right? Can you take a seat? And instead of being like, oh, well, I'm just blah, 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 you keep getting on to me, blah, blah, blah. Instead of that, they go, oh, yeah, you're right. My bad. And then they sit down and then they don't continuously get up after that. Right. Like my bad should go a long way. Understanding that apologizing or just taking ownership of what you do is a good thing. Right. Now we also have the opposite, the kid that says my bad every single time and continuously does the same thing over and over and over. That's a whole different situation because that kid's just playing you, right? Like that
Yeah.
kid, they don't mean it. They're not learning anything from it. They're on cruise control. They've been doing this for 6 years, man. They
And
just keep
that's
getting up.
and
My bad.
and
My
that's where we
bad.
talk about escalation, right? Of consequences, right?
Hmm.
If that consequence is just if you're just turning your wheels and this kid's just sitting in lunch detention every day because they're doing the same thing, like maybe it's time we do something else. Maybe
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it's
time we
not
look for an
working.
alternative consequence, right? Because some kids, they'll just sit there in lunch detention and be perfectly fine with that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
you know, and that's why
I will say,
it's important to escalate that. Yeah.
I will say this though. I know kids that I've had in the past who having to go and say I'm sorry, that is much more of a consequence than lunch detention. Admitting you're wrong, way more of a consequence than lunch detention or whatever else it is. Like it is hard. It's hard to admit you're wrong, right? And not just for students, but for teachers as well. I had students this year that I lost my cool a little bit, raised my voice, and I don't normally do that. I was having a bad day, and I flipped out a little bit. And then later I pulled him aside after, I think it was after the class, and I said, "Hey, I owe you an apology. Yeah, what you were doing wasn't what you should have been doing, but the way I reacted wasn't reasonable." Right? Teachers, we're not always right. It's just, and plus we're the adults, right? So it's hard to admit you're wrong, but it's important because you grow from it, right? Not just students, but teachers as well.
Yeah. And you're modeling that behavior, right? I mean, it,
Hmm.
I say it all the time you'll hear me say it a million times. We're all human, right? We are all going to make mistakes. Um,
Yep.
no one's perfect. And so owning up to that and admitting that in front of a bunch of students, I think that garners a lot of respect because I've had that issue before too. Not that it's happened a lot, but occasionally I've lost my cool or something on a group and, gotten a little bit carried away with how I was approaching the situation. And I've had to come back and be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I shouldn't have acted that way either. Right.
Yeah.
We're not discrediting you all weren't following expectations still, right?
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I also shouldn't have done or reacted the way I reacted. So
Yeah. I think it's important. Okay. Number three, my bad goes a long way. Now we're moving on to number four, buddy teachers with reflection sheets. Buddy teachers with reflection sheets. So we do this a lot at our school. We have buddy teachers. We send students to that buddy teacher if, for whatever reason, class is just not going well for them that day. And in the past, we've had students write reflections on what it is that's, it. And these reflections could be a lot of things, right? And I've seen a little bit of everything, but I think it's important to have a different environment for a student to escape to should need be. So we have students who, for whatever reason, whether it's they're struggling with their parents that day, had a fight with a sibling before school, they've got drama going on with their friends, they just aren't feeling you today, right? We have those situations. We also have situations with ourselves where we have personal things going on. Teachers have issues. And then today this kid is on 10 And I just can't, right? This is a way of keeping students out of trouble. It's a way of keeping students things from escalating. So you'd be surprised how much sending a kid to a different room for 10, 15 minutes, having them sit down and chill, just write a reflection, and you'd be surprised what happens on a lot of these reflections. It'll be things like, hey, I'm not feeling well today, that's why this happened, or I had an argument with my sister, uh, or sometimes it'll be an apology. I shouldn't have done that. Um, Sometimes they crumple it up and throw it away. It happens, but I do think it's important for students to have somewhat of an escape and to keep away from that power struggle. Right? We as teachers, we tend to get into that power struggle mode, where you're wanting to argue, get the last word, that whole thing. And this is a way to keep from that, because the time to talk about the issue is not right now while everybody's upset. You know, take a time out, go chill. I'm going to chill for a minute. You know, let's get back to zero, and then we'll have a conversation. So, thoughts?
I have been pushing for this one actually because you mentioned this because you all have been doing this for a while now at your school. I've been pushing for this one at my school. I'm hoping one of these days I can get it. I can get it going. But as of now, we do not have that option, and I think it would be great. Now, what I will say about reflection sheets, what I will say about reflection sheets is if you are going to do reflection sheets, you have to follow through with the reflection sheets. Because we have done that
Yes.
in the past where we have done reflection sheets in lunch detention and they scribble or they put just whatever on there and no one ever,
Song lyrics.
yeah, song lyrics, whatever,
Yeah.
and no one ever has a conversation with them about them. They get put in teachers' mailboxes and they get tossed in the trash or whatever.
Mhm.
And it is not effective. So if you are going to do it, you have to commit. Like you have to be willing to take that reflection sheet and have that conversation. And
Yeah.
if you start out with the expectation you are going to complete the reflection sheet, or you're going to get it back, you're going to have to redo it, or we're going to have a conversation that's going to be even more painful than you writing on paper, then it's good, right? But it is a very bad situation. Like I've had in the past where that consequence has did a complete 180 and been just a nightmare. So
Mhm. Well, logistically, it can be a problem, right? Just keeping up with the reflection sheets and everything else. Um, I will say that sitting down with a student and having a conversation. So my situation is different than a lot of teachers. I have a co-teacher, and with us, if I need to step out in the hallway, pull a kid, sit down with them. Hey, I got your reflection sheet here. Let's talk about it for a few minutes. I can do that without worrying about my class going completely haywire, right? Which is most teachers don't have that luxury, right? You're trying to talk to a kid while dealing with your class, so you either have to pull them out of another room during your plan bell, or you have to find them at lunch, or you have to pull them up to your desk, and you don't want to do it in front of everyone, obviously. So there's a lot of logistical problems with it, but I do think it's useful if it's done correctly. Now, with that being said, you kind of gave me an idea there, sort of, or at least sparked something with new teachers, especially. Make sure that when you're and this is with grading papers, with reflection sheets, with all that, when students realize that you actually read what they write, it goes a long way. Um, you have that. You sit down with a kid one, two times with that reflection sheet and talk to them about it. Those reflection sheets are going to get a lot better, because now they know you're reading it. You know that they matter to you, not just the reflection sheet, but them as a student. They're important to you as people, and I think that it's important that you find a way to make sure students, whether it's commenting on work, or it's having conversations about reflection sheets, or whatever it is, make sure students know that you are reading what they write. and I think that that's really useful. But you're right. Logistically, they can be difficult. So if you're going to do something, you have to commit. You have to do it. You have to do it the right way.
Exactly. So don't be
So
doing it if you don't like me right now. There's no way that I have time to go through reflection sheet after reflection sheet for any behaviors. Which of course I have a very good group right now. So like as far as behaviors, like I probably wouldn't have that many reflection sheets to be honest with you right now. Um,
mm,
it's been a great school year. So, but yeah, like you gotta commit, and I know right
yeah.
now I'm not in a place where I'm going to commit to that. So that's not what I'm doing right now.
I've got you. I've got, and also like your school, like part of their policy is you don't really do like a buddy teacher or sending them somewhere else for a few
Yeah.
minutes. That's something we've done for a very very long time. It's something that's really useful. It's just taking a time out, just taking just take a few minutes. You have two kids that's arguing with each other, trying to get the last word, like whatever. Like that's a lot of it's getting kids out of those situations,
Now I will
right?
say my administration does a good job of pulling them if I do need to, but I don't want to be calling. You know, sometimes those things aren't warranted to call an administrator to come down
Mm.
and pull a kid. But I have been known in the past, like be like I've told them like, hey, just go get a drink of water. Just go take a break. Go get a
They
drink of
just
water.
yeah, they just need to get away from it for a minute, right? Just
Sometimes we all
and
do.
then gotta hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could understand, not wanting to send kids out of the room for whatever reason, to a different class or whatever. Um, I get that because you're not only are you not wanting them to miss your curriculum, but also you don't want them to disrupt other teachers' curriculum. What we have found is that if I send a kid out 15 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to put you in this room. I want you to go in there and just chill, fill this out. Just, just chill for a minute. Um, what we have found is most 99% of the time, our students are not problems in the class they go to, even when they were problems in ours, because they know this is your chance to stay out of trouble. This is not you're in trouble. This is I'm keeping you out of trouble. I'm giving you a minute to chill and find yourself, right? Um, Now you go in there and you cause problems. Now we have an issue, right? Now we have a problem. But 99% of the time, and I've been there for 10 years, we've always done this. It's usually not an issue. So, anyways, buddy teachers with reflections, I think that's useful. But again, it all depends on school policy and how they handle things. All right, last one on the list, number 5, and this is an easy one. This is the most basic one of all. Have them do it the right way. Have them do it the right way. Have you ever seen a kid's just sprinting down the hallway at the speed of light, and the teacher stops him and makes him go back and walk?
I'm that. Hey,
That's
it
you.
me.
Hit
It
me.
me. Yeah, no, we're doing this again. We are turning back around. We did this year. So actually, my team, I don't know why this happened, but my team decided that we were going to this year be at a level 0 and on the right side of the hallway, single file line to the lunchroom. Now, I've never done this before. Usually it's like you can talk a little quiet while you're going up the hallway, but for
That's
some
a tough
reason,
one.
at the beginning of the year, we were like, that is it. That's what we are doing. And so, still, to like, my kids will be like, it'll be loud in my room, but as soon as
Mhm.
lunchtime hits, it's silent, and they are lined up and they're walking in a single file line, and they have followed that expectation all year because at the beginning of the year we were like, no, we're retrying this. Have a seat. Have a seat.
Over
Have
and
a seat.
over.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
you're
now
teaching
it's
them
a
how to behave.
well-oiled machine. The adventurer team, we walk to lunch quietly, if nothing else.
It's you know what, numero uno. This is priority number 1, baby.
Yeah.
We're walking to the lunchroom quietly. It is hard, man. It's hard to take students out in the hallway and keep them quiet. It takes a lot of you have to be willing to put a lot of work into it. Now I can tell you, mine do not go to lunch quietly. Nope. Um, we walk them down, but they're not definitely not quiet. Um, Now the running thing in the hallway, yeah, we do that one all the time. It's like, hey, no, 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 stop, go back there, now walk, like go back, try it again, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we do that. We do that a lot. I think that's useful, right? Having students do things the right way is, instead of jumping to, all right, dude, I'm, blah, 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 I'm going to give you this or this or this, right? Now, once you've done it multiple times, and now it's like, okay, it's not that you don't know what to do, you're doing this on purpose. That's different, right?
Yep.
But we're talking about teaching students behaviors. The thing about, especially seventh graders, right? The thing about middle schoolers in general, you can't assume that they know what you want. You can't assume, like, you think back to when you were a kid and was like, well, I knew not to do that in class, right? You can't assume that they know that that's not something they should do in class. Like, it's, you can't ever make assumptions with middle schoolers.
Especially post pandemic, right? They missed so much of that like formative, like, the kids we have now, they were like what, fourth grade, third grade. So they missed like
Something like that.
some very fundamental ages. So um yeah, you got to be, you got, I mean, and I feel like we say this like some of the same things, but I mean, there's obviously some trends, but like you have to be very clear on exactly what you want every time. Um, and yeah, and also not just having them go back and walk. I've been known as well to walk with them. Like, all right, you're going to walk with me, and we're
I'll
gonna
show you how it's
I'm
done.
gonna model. I'm gonna show you how to walk slow. Right?
Here's how we do it. This is
I
how
don't
we do it. This
I
is
don't
how we
move
walk.
fast, right?
we we crawling, like, I have actually timed myself walking between like classes when they're late, because I deal with our team's tardies. So I've put like a stopwatch on my phone, and I'll walk from one side of the building to the other, and I'm like, you should be able to get there on time.
Yeah, if I'm
I've,
making it in this time with these old legs, then
yeah, my back hurts. I made it up 2 flights of stairs. Like, I can do it, you can do it. And I we have that all the time. Teachers will see me in the hallway, and I'll be just, if I'm just randomly somewhere that I just normally wouldn't be, and they'll be like, "You timing it?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just going somewhere else." They just assume that that's what I'm doing.
that's awesome.
So, yeah, I think that that's something that we could definitely, that people can definitely look at. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is that consequences are there for students to learn from it, and to take ownership in what they do. And again, I'm going to reiterate that, all the other things that we do, the detentions, the ISS, and again, we didn't touch on positive reinforcement. Surprisingly, obviously, that's something that needs to be a huge part of anybody's classroom. We talk about that a lot, but I wanted to make this a little more on the on the consequence side. And I know that positive reinforcement technically is a consequence, but I wanted to look at it in a little bit of a different light. Um, but those are some options. Those are some things to consider. I think that will about do it for episode 5. It's in the bin. We finally got there. We finally did it. All these things that we can do to hopefully help students learn the right way to school. A lot of kids don't know how to school, right?
I think that needs
So,
to be the title, "The Right Way to School."
the right way to school, baby. We'll see. But anyways, that should wrap it up. We would appreciate it so much if you would consider liking, subscribing, doing all those other fun things, whether it's on YouTube or any other podcast platform that you may be listening on. Additionally, we have a Facebook page. Been sending out mass invites to a bunch of people. Sorry if I've spammed you, don't mean to, but hey, is what it is. I would
We
appreciate it
just
if
hustling out here.
we just hustling. I would appreciate it if people would join the conversation. We want to kind of start those discussions, have new ideas for new episodes, or just talk about the topics that we've been discussing. So, as always, have a fantastic day, and we will see you next week for episode 6.